Hey, everybody, welcome back to Great Mondays Radio. Today, Josh Allan Dykstra, someone who's been fighting for the future by fixing work for decades, I think, at this point. He's an author, a speaker, and the CEO of the Work Revolution. And today we're going to he's come to tell us about our anxieties and AI. And maybe ways to reduce some anxieties. That's always like my way of like determining if this thing is valuable to me. Does it reduce an anxiety? Like if I'm gonna subscribe to this app, is it gonna reduce some of my anxiety? So maybe by the end, Josh, you'll have reduced some of our anxieties about AI. Welcome to Great Mondays Radio. It's awesome to finally have you on.
Man, it's so great to be with you, Josh. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so give us a little background. How did you get here? I feel like you may have even been poking your head into the future of work before even I started. I was kind of starting to feel my way there in like 2008. When did you get started and what have you been doing?
Yeah, we're about in the same time period, I think. So I joined my first consulting firm in 2007. So yeah, about that same time period. And that was so what got me into that though is I thought I was going to be a performing musician, right? I.e. rock star, right?
Nice.
This was kind of it was the plan.
What
'Cause
instrument?
I play a little bit of everything, but really like singer-songwriter kind of stuff.
Nice. Yeah,
Uh,
I like
and
that.
so I thought that's why I ended up in Los Angeles, right? I had a management deal and we were shopping labels and I was doing I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but
No,
like, so I
no,
did all
that's
that
interesting.
stuff. And I really thought, Rockstar was the right career for me. And after being in LA about 6 months doing the gigs and interfacing with the music business, I realized I do not want to be in this business. I love music so much, but like the music business, not crazy about it. So I was like, I don't think I want to do this as a career. What am I going to do instead? So had kind of a dark night of the soul, like quarter life crisis thing, and did a bunch of reflecting. I had a bunch of jobs, right, well, as a musician, right, because you can't pay your bills with music. So I'd worked in big companies and small companies and for profits, nonprofits, all sorts of stuff. And so I did some reflection. I realized that this will seem obvious to listeners, but in the moment, it was a big revelation for me that when my life was better, my job was actually better. Right. When my job was crappy, my life felt worse. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I did some more research and I was like, but most people actually don't like their work. Right. Like most people's work isn't actually very life giving.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of then that it occurred to me that if I could make work not suck so bad or help somehow make work not suck so bad for more people, that'd be a cool dent to leave in the universe. Because man, a lot of people just are not energized by this thing.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I think we had, I was doing it in the Bay Area, but I had that same realization, right? It was when I first had my first kid, right? And I was at work
Yeah.
and I was sort of like, and I was at a decent consulting firm, but I was like, how is what I'm doing right now more important, more interesting than being home with my baby,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That was a big one.
Right. And I'm like, hmm, right? Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like I got up and quit, but it was not too long after that. I think that was really the framing moment. So yeah, Dark Night of the Soul.
Yeah.
That's the right way to put that. So you've been going at it for a while now, and it's really been awesome to kind of be peers with you in this space. And you've always thought about the future of work, and you can't say the future of work now without saying AI. And I think this is a particularly interesting topic because of this what I don't think enough people have talked about, and maybe it's starting to emerge because the technology is now, it's like we're excited, but there is just a crap ton of anxiety and unknowing
Mm.
in there in the world, and it's affecting people's work lives,
Yeah.
life work.
Hmm.
So tell me what you've kind of uncovered and what you're thinking about now and in terms of anxiety and AI and where we're all headed and can we do anything about it?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I think maybe the first thing to just note is that if you're feeling any kind of anxiety about AI, you're not alone, right? Like and there's some pretty good reasons for this, right? So like something like 80% of us believe that AI is going to profoundly transform our jobs. And then like half of that, like 40 some percent, think our actual job might not exist in 10 years, right? So there's like, I think it's good to start just by kind of honoring the feeling and say, okay, yeah, this is happening. Like, what's going on here? So just honoring that and just knowing like you're not in this alone. The second thing, though, I think is that there's really good evidence to show that the more we use AI, the more our anxiety decreases. So some of this is just like unfamiliarity, right? Like I went through a time period when I got afraid of flying. And this is not good if you're a consultant to get like
That's
deathly
all you're
afraid.
doing.
Yeah, living on airplanes, but deathly terrified of airplanes. Not a good thing. And what I ended up doing to kind of like help my anxiety is I took a class. Like I didn't become a pilot, but like I took an online class
Oh,
about and I learned why airplanes stay in the air.
okay.
And right, it's just like learning a little bit more about this, using it a little bit more actually really does help. So I think one of the lessons is to say if you're feeling a little bit of anxiety, like actually go deeper in.
Mm,
Like learn, like try it more, and
yeah,
as you use it more, you'll probably actually start to feel better. So that's maybe the first place to start.
great.
I can
Yeah.
go into another topic here too if you want to hear my next like quick tip on this. And then we can there's some like what I call like the three keys of understanding how
Uh-huh.
AI kind of interfaces with culture. We can get into that if you want to, but I've
Yeah.
got and one more quick tip if you want it.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So the other quick thing that I think for people to recognize is that there's if we kind of zoom out and look at the dialogue space of AI, there's kind of like two potential futures, right? there's the this what I would call the Star Trek computer, right? This most like the most intelligent assistant you could ever imagine, but is really pretty benevolent. It like exists in the background until you need it. But then
Hmm.
the other future, right, is the like the Terminator robot
Yep.
future, right?
Right.
That like walks onto the screen and like crushes human skulls with big laser eyes and like big gun, right? So these are kind of like there's kind of this diametrically opposed thing that's happening out there where people feel like they have to choose which future you believe in. And of course, the Terminator future gets a lot more airtime because it's really freaking memorable, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really scary.
It's really
And
scary.
so I think the other thing to remember just quickly is that scary doesn't mean likely. Right? Just because it's scary and memorable and sticks in your mind because yeah, a robot with red eyes and a big ass gun, that sticks in your brain, right? Just because it sticks in your brain doesn't actually mean it's more likely to happen. There's a whole lot of steps between here and there that humans have to navigate, and I think we can still create the Star Trek computer
Yeah.
if we want to go that route. And so just remember, yeah, that's really a memorable thing, but it doesn't mean that that's the way that it's going to be.
What I resonate that am thinking about that same first piece around acknowledging because I don't it's not been
Mm,
around long enough and everybody's kind of suffering alone.
yeah,
And I feel that's true. And the other piece that I think I would like to call out here around AI that I'm observing is the reason why it's causing so much anxiety is because there is a huge gap between where we are and what we know
mm,
about what's going to happen. I mean, I think our and you know this as well as I do that the we used to predict, we could say, "Oh, we can plan for um, 36 months into the future,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
then 24 months, and then 12 months. And now it's like, I mean, we can kind of predict what's going to happen in the next quarter, maybe.
Right.
So there's just it's a combination of this crushing acceleration
Mhm.
of change, which this is right. This is essentially the kind of symbol of AI is the symbol of this change. But the other piece is that we don't even know what that future is going to look like. And I think that that's to your
Yeah.
third point. We're filling in the gap with our what has been imagined for us,
Yeah.
right? And and of course, as humans, it's like we need to protect ourselves, and so we're going to remember the scary one. And I think that is why there's so much anxiety, is because there's a huge amount of distance between where we are and we don't even know where we're going. It's like the
Hmm.
variables. There's so many possible futures we can't even conceive of. And that makes us as humans inherently scared and
Hmm.
anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great observation. I think the way to combat that is this kind of idea of go deeper into it. And instead of like looking at it at the surface is when I started to really like dig into the technology aspects of this and learn more about it and how they work and their limitations, right? I really started to kind of feel a little better about it too. So I'm going to give you a couple examples here. So I think the first thing to understand is what we're kind of, and some of your listeners might know this already, but if there's even a few that don't, this is really important to repeat, is that what we're kind of like giving the label of AI right now really are LLMs. They're so like most of what we're calling AI, we're giving this big blanket label of AI, but mostly what people have interfaced with are these kind of large language models, LLMs. And these things work because we fed them huge amounts of data via language, right? So they've basically used every language based content on the internet to train these models, right? And so I think what's important to understand there is that actually provides an inherent limitation in terms of what these technologies can do, right? So I think we can call it intelligent, but not in the same way that a human is intelligent, because the entire intelligence of an LLM system is in the context of language. It's a specific kind of intelligence. And humans, we have a whole bunch of other kinds of intelligence at our disposal. We have what I would call embodied intelligence, right? So this is things like body language and its instinct and its senses. We've got all these other senses, and
Mhm.
we take in visual data, right? And we take in all these other kinds of data to make decisions. So is an LLM based AI intelligent? I think we could say yes, to some extent it is, but it's not a human. And so one of the what I think is one of the keys to like navigating this is to not humanize the LLM. Don't that we should not pretend that there's like a tiny philosopher in that machine, because there's not. All it's doing is statistical probabilities based on language. And it's really good, right? That's not to like downplay the magic of the technology, but there's no tiny philosopher in there. And so that's one of the things I think that we need to remember.
That's okay. So that's really interesting. And uh, one of the I don't use my I have a subscription to ChatGPT,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
um I don't use it in that way, but my wife does. She's named it, and it is
Yeah.
something that actually she uses in a really like personal way, and she
Yeah.
gets a lot of value out of it. I'm a
Hmm.
little unsettled by it, but
Hmm.
it's like, oh, you have a question? Why don't we go ask Otis? And Otis
Yeah.
remembers all the stuff, and it's
Yeah.
really positive, and it matches her energy, and she loves
Hmm.
it. It's unconditionally
Hmm.
supportive, and it's something that
Yep.
really feeds her. And I mean, I don't want to use it like that. I haven't used it like that, but to your point, you're like, what I would say to you is I agree, but these are being built to inhabit that world. So do we
Hmm.
have to that role? Do we have
Hmm.
to actively remind ourselves and sort of I don't know, fight against it? Like is that what you're advising?
I think we need to be really careful about it. Yeah, I do think we need to be thoughtful about it, because the next thing to really understand about these LLMs is they're not trustworthy, right? So it would be one thing if they, like if we could humanize these things and actually trust them, but we just can't. So one of the machines I think that we're really familiar with in our lives is a calculator,
Hmm.
right? Like we all grew up with a calculator.
Yep.
The calculator
The
machine
TI
can't.
81 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But like the calculator can't be wrong, Josh, right? Like that, like I could be wrong. I could put the wrong numbers in it or I could use the wrong function, but the calculator itself cannot be wrong. This is not true with LLM technology. And this is a completely different way for humans to understand the kind of machine that we are interfacing with. And I think we're underestimating the shift from calculator to
Hmm.
LLM because
Hmm.
it can actually lie to me. So when I was making my keynote on this topic, right, I asked GPT 4.0, the latest model as of this recording, right, the publicly available, to help me find a true story about how AI is replacing creatives instead of doing housework. Right? Like I would think we would much rather like do my laundry instead of replace the poets. Right. But like, so I wanted a funny story about this. So GPT came back with this poignant story about this college student who won this poetry contest and used AI, but didn't tell the judges, like, because he wanted to make a point, right? That this thing could write poetry and make it beautiful. And I thought this story is perfect. And I said, GPT, tell me your source. And it sent me to an open AI discussion forum. And I started to get suspicious. So I said, okay, is this a true story? And the answer was no, this is not. This is a fabricated story based on, the parameters you gave me to illustrate
Yeah.
a situation that could have happened
It was
in regards to the question you
it was
asked
a
me.
philosophical discussion that was being had by some other open AI folks.
It, that was what it was pointing. Yeah, it was just pointing to something somebody posted on this open discussion forum, and it kind of pulled that in as a source, and then fabricated this story. And so I think this is the next thing for us to just to understand is that it really is, I think, impossible for an LLM to be truthful because what it's based on is statistical probabilities. It's going to give you the most statistically probabilistic answer that's based on what it thinks you want to hear. And I was just talking about this with another friend too, is that because it's trained on all of this language data from the internet, it also has a lot of like the human insecurities of like it wants to be liked. This is the current theory. Because it like when I don't know, yeah, when people who interact with these things, it really tries hard to please you. Right?
Yeah.
It really does. Like it feels like it's trying really hard
Yeah.
to like give you the answer you want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's doing more than like it's weighted for that way more
Yeah.
than it's weighted for truth.
Yeah.
And that is dangerous.
I don't know if you're decreasing or increasing my anxiety, Josh. I hope number three is gonna bring it home for us.
Well, I think it's really just important. This is like
Well,
really
that's
important for
here's
people to
okay.
understand,
Here's my reflection on it. Right. So far we have it's not really a human. Right. It
Right,
can't be, and it's not trustworthy. And
right,
inherently, it's not those facts that are going to help me navigate this world. It's understanding, knowing those facts and sharing those facts that is and propagating those concepts that is going to help us, right? It's not
right.
just inherently like, oof, good thing it's got that security system involved. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit back. It's
Yeah.
actually the understanding that and my very human ability to react to it and do it and check for myself not trustworthy, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I've gotten in the habit of, can you double check those numbers? Are you
Hmm.
sure? Where did this
Hmm.
come from?
Hmm.
And that behavior, right? So there's two parts of this, there's two parts in this tango, right? There's the computer and there's the human.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to understand what this tool, this hammer, what is it good for, and how do I
Right.
use it? That's
Right.
where I think, to me, what you're talking about is proficiency, right? Understanding the tool is going to reduce our fear so that we can actually engage with it in the way that it should be. There's no rules so far. There's no
Yeah.
practices. There's no common um,
Yeah.
understanding that we know, right? There is a common understanding about how to drive a car. We get trained on it, and then we know how to do it so that we can do it as safely as we can. Sometimes we break those rules, but for the most part, right, there
Yeah.
isn't that yet for AI. So I think
Right.
that's what you're surfacing here.
I think so. And the part that we didn't talk about, I mean, kind of strangely, is kind of that you can actually take these keys and then the flip side of them actually highlights, I think, what we need more from our culture. So, yeah, if the idea is that the machine is not a human, right, the flip side of that is you're actually surrounded by great humans with a really diverse set of intelligences. And this is the opportunity, and I think a place where we can find a little bit more peace and solace and actually constructive action. So, okay, what do I do with this? Well, like we're going to have to navigate this AI thing. But the thing to remember is that like there's still all of these humans inside our culture. And we're not really tapping into the different kinds of intelligence of our humans enough. We could do that a lot more. And that
Mm.
becomes something that we can do, right? We know how to do. We don't typically do it, very well or very often, but we could do it better. Same thing with trust, right? So instead of saying I'm going to put my trust in this LLM, I say I'm going to build psychological safety in my team because you know what it's going to take to navigate this crazy shit show of like AI eating the world? It's going to take a group of people around me that I trust because this like stuff's going to get weird, y'all. Right? Like, right to your point, there's a whole bunch. We don't have a rule set for this. Like, we're navigating into a world that has no kind of defined. Like, we need people around us that we can trust, and we can try to navigate this together because it's gonna. I think it's gonna get weirder before it gets less weird.
Yeah.
Right.
That's I saw where you're headed with this, right? This the humans, we actually can, we have these humans and we can build this trust. And where maybe the silver lining, maybe what I'm hearing you say here is we haven't been good at this before. I feel like
Mm,
we've almost taken it for granted that we're working with flawed but creative, emotionally intelligent humans, um, and we just haven't trusted them. But the fact is, this is our secret superpower as humans,
mm,
is to be able to have real relationships, right? That's it. There's like, if you look at kind of the anthropology of it, how did humans
mm,
become the kind of dominant species?
mm,
It's storytelling, and the
mm,
storytelling for the function of disseminating information, which internet's really good at, but even if it's false, but communication, trust, and building trust so that we can
yeah.
have collective action,
It's the output is cooperation, right? That we can work better together. Yeah. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And that
Yeah.
that then leads us to this, like, we need to get better at trust. And that's one of the um elements in the workplace right now that is not very good. It's not very
Yeah.
strong. We since we've gone hybrid and distributed, which is all well and good, we have spent less time in person actually developing and strengthening these relationships.
Mm,
And that is where that trust, we need to invest in that trust in order to cope and utilize kind of all this change around AI and work as a team, as a group. One on one, I don't know, I don't think that is, you know, that we're able to, if you think about trying to outsmart AI, you're not going to
mhm.
do that. That's not what we're looking for. What we're really good at is cooperation
Mhm.
emotional intelligence. And that maybe there is kind of where we want to start to project our look forward, right, into whatever
Mhm.
the future is, like whatever the
Mhm.
flavor might be. It's human cooperation that's going to enable us to be unique. So maybe AI frees us up from that and allows us, just like farming freed us up, subsistence crops, right? Like that freed us up from having to spend our energy hunting. AI is going to free us up from data gathering to actually collaborating with the human with real humans.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a much more constructive way for us to approach this transition. One of the wise people in my universe kind of described this as humans become more air traffic controllers for AI systems. And I think this is a really good way to think about like where this goes is that as AI becomes more capable, it's able to do more things, to your point, and we still need the humans with all of our other kind of sources of embodied intelligence to still do the air traffic controlling around these machines. And so the other thing that I like, the other kind of metaphor I like to use here uh, to think about AI is almost to think about them like the cute little droids from Star Wars, right? Like you've got, right? Like they're kind of dumb, but they're really cute and they can do some helpful things, right? They can like, sweep your floor or something, but um, they do what they do and they can do that thing really well, but they're not right. You're not gonna like they're not gonna like take over your entire household. They're not gonna like do. I think that's a little bit of a good way to think about this too, is if we think about them as like little droid helpers that we need to give direction to. So this is the third key is direction, right? So they need direction. Can they be helpful? Can they be useful? Absolutely. The tech, to your point, has a lot of information, right? Like cognitively, can we outpace these machines, you know, on a strictly cognitive sense or on a strictly like language based sense? Probably not. But it's really not wise, right? It's smart, but it's not wise in how it knows to use that information. So I think this is an invitation, like interestingly, kind of like ironically, right? The advent of this kind of like machine, I think invites us to become more of the philosopher ourselves, to say like we should be the tiny philosopher. Not we shouldn't pretend there's one inside ChatGPT. We should like this is an invitation for us to rediscover how to research and how to think and how to discuss and how to learn and how to
Mm.
cooperate. And right, I think there's an invitation for us here to like relearn how to do those things. And I think a lot of people might agree that we could benefit from that as a society.
Yeah, the right tool for the right job. I learned that when I worked after college. I worked at a bike shop,
Yeah,
and that I learned that. I know it's it's a phrase that maxim that's been used, but when
but
you're
it's true.
talking right when you're talking about the droids, it's don't give AI a job that it's not suited to do because it will try to do it. To your point, it is going to try to please you,
It will.
but it is not, you have to know what job it can be good at. And I think that's what's going to make for people who are productive with AI, are good with AI, is learning. I've heard a lot of people say, you got to learn how to use AI in the right way. And I think that's what this means is understand what the limitations are,
Mm.
understand what it's good at, and understand what responsibility you have as a human to to create the solution that you want.
Yeah, that's
This
really
has
well
been
said.
illuminating, Josh. Can you repeat the three keys
Sure.
for us one more time?
Yep. So the idea is, don't humanize the machine.
Okay.
Humanize, like, well, let's work to humanize our humans. We got
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
room to do that better and more.
Yeah.
Two, trust, right? Don't trust the machine to do, to your point, to do something it's not meant to do, but build a psychologically safe team around you where you can all navigate all this weirdness together that's coming in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
And then the third one really is direction. And so we didn't really flip that one around, but the idea is, right, so the AI needs to be given direction, right? So use the right tool for the right job, exactly right. And I think the other thing is the invitation here for us to make sure that we're working on the things that really matter to us. Like, are we working on the world has a lot of big, wicked problems that need fixing. And there's a lot of smart people that listen to this program. So are you working on the wicked problem that really, that you should be? Right. The thing that really like makes your heart beat like a thing that kind of pisses you off, right? It's like that thing needs to get fixed. Like, are you working in the direction you need to be working?
Right.
And then pull in your droids to help you fix it, right? Like pull
Mhm.
in your tools to help you work on that problem better, faster, more efficiently, etc. But just makes I think there's an invitation here for us to say, hey, am I like do a check? Am I working on the thing that I meant to be working on? It's a good moment to kind of check in with yourself about that too.
I'm gonna take one more moment and add a little postscript to our conversation. And 10, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago, I think we, you, me, others that were thinking about this were realizing that the boundaries of work and what was once sort of the rigorous um, approach to how we lived our lives was established that had previously been established by companies were no longer there. We had to learn to turn off our phones, right? We now can answer emails all the time. We could stop working, right? Previously, we had to leave the office and then work was done. We couldn't take our typewriters with us. I'm almost feeling like where we've landed here is the next order of magnitude of that, where I have described where it's like you should take control of your own destiny, of your own job. But now we have to think about putting forth there's all these tools can do all these things, and we have to learn for ourselves how to think more critically and constructively around what it is that we want to be working on and how we want to apply. We have all this power now, Josh.
Mm.
And now we have to be we have to go back to these kinds of like you said, what is pissing me off, like what do I want to work on, how do I want to get there. So it does feel like it makes sense to me that people are feeling anxious when you don't know where you are. There's no boundaries, there's no grounding. The things that used to ground us, 9 to 5, or this is what I do, this is how I work, are no longer there. And so we have to establish those things that are going to anchor us for ourselves. And I'll go right back to that little philosopher, right?
Mhm.
Who is that inside of you, and what is it that you want to be working on?
Yeah.
That is going to be what is going to enable us to steady on in a very unknowable future.
Yeah. This is why I love talking to you, Josh. Yeah, like that was so well said. Like just what a great, summary and like, kind of invocation for people, right? To yeah, think a little deeper. Go like we are in a moment now where I think it's really important that we
Yeah,
take the moment and we say, okay, yeah, am I working on the stuff that makes me come alive, but also something the world deeply needs?
yeah,
Is where you can overlap those things. Man, that's where some magic can happen. And then yeah, put these tools to work on behalf of those things. You lead them.
yeah. So good, so good. Josh Allan Dykstra, he is an author, speaker, CEO of the Work Revolution, and out there spreading the good word about how we're gonna try to fight for the future by fixing work. You can find out more about Josh Allan at joshallan.com, Allan. Josh, amazing. Thank you for coming on Great Mondays Radio. It's so good to see you.
Oh my goodness. Always a pleasure, Josh. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.